Okay. Call to order at 5 o'clock. We have roll call, please. Madarsky.
It's coming in right now.
Okay. Morris,
Present.
Schufelt,
Nah.
Wright,
Here.
Block,
Here.
Fields,
Here.
and Moore. I am here. Did that a little out of order. We have the agenda. Are there any revisions? Or shall we approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Motion by Morris, support by Fields. Requires a roll call. Morris,
Yes.
Schufelt, excused. Right,
Here. Oh, yes, sorry.
Block,
Yes.
Fields.
Yes.
Moore is a yes. Madarsky.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-0. Now we're into board discussion. And I think we wanted to kind of just a little bit from me, and then the rest will be led by everyone else. Wanted to get everybody together. We're going to be forming some committees and just get a board discussion so that we're all have all the information that we need and can ask questions. And in the future, we'll have these meetings full together where our board has met with the various representatives, the department heads throughout the time period. So push it over to you, the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that we have lots of things that we're facing as a school district coming up, and I really love that we have this opportunity to kind of put some of the discussion out there. I know that there is going to be a lot of talk around the fact that we still have the $100 million in unsold bonds that were from the bond initiative. And I think that was one of the things that I think it was a good idea for the board to kind of talk about where we want to go with that, what some of the thoughts are. And that was kind of where I wanted to kick off today to see what the thoughts of the board are.
Okay, well, everyone here, we talk about the $100 million. I'm sure everybody is aware that we have $100 million that of bonds that have not been sold. In discussions throughout the past year or so, it was kind of determined that isn't enough money to build a new high school. About 100 million short. So there's been lots of discussion. What do we do? Do we build something smaller? Do we renovate? And at this point today, we just don't know what to do. So that's what we want to get together and investigate these things, get information, and then make the best decision for us and for the residents, most importantly for our kids. So we want to gather information and move on from there.
Yeah, so it's open a discussion, people's
discussion.
thoughts, people.
So,
You don't really need it.
so I just wanted to get clarity. So I know the 100 million has not been sold,
Correct.
which means that those taxes have not been levied against citizens of Taylor or the Taylor School District, meaning that the school district does not have those funds in ownership.
Correct. Correct.
Those funds are still in bonds that are still not sold, meaning no taxes have been levied. School district has $0 of that 100 million. But
Correct.
we have sold in 2022, correct?
Mhm.
$30 million worth of bonds of the 130 total that the community approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
And of that 30 million, how much have we spent to date?
So I think what we still have on the table is roughly around, well, I'll say this. You have what was spent on like the playgrounds, the site improvements, those pieces, and then we have so much of it that was voted by the previous board to be committed towards athletics. That all told is somewhere around $20 million that either has been spent or committed at this point.
So we have $20 million committed or spent.
Correct. At this
Okay.
point, yes.
And of that 20 million, it went towards new playgrounds at all the elementaries. It went towards new furniture at Holland, McDowell, and Myers Elementary.
Correct.
The building renovations for Holland, McDowell, and Myers Elementary,
Correct.
aside from the addition at
Yeah.
Holland, that
Correct.
was paid out of general fund.
Correct.
It also went towards, you said,
Site improvements, I know we did like sidewalks, cement work, things like that. So that would be another place that money had gone to.
the new sidewalks at Taylor High School.
Correct.
And then it also about 12, I mean, it's what, 11,900,000, just under 12
Roughly for
million
the athletics piece, yes.
committed to athletics for the
Correct.
high school.
Yep.
Yep.
And in total, 20 million. So we have about $10 million remaining. Is that accurate?
It sounds pretty close. And Gary, feel free to jump in if you have something more specific for that answer, but that's roughly about where my understanding is.
I'll talk about accurate, and we did spend roughly about $1 million.
Oh. Demo Kennedy. And the board office, right?
Are those bonds callable? If we don't spend the money, can we call them back and refund them?
No.
No.
Okay. I'd like to get that in writing at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, in total, it was roughly 18.2 million unallocated, then you deduct 11 million for that price.
You said 18.2 million needed to be allocated, right? Or was unallocated. And how much of that 18.2 was then allocated to athletics? 11 million. Okay. So roughly about $7.2 million left.
Yeah, I thought that is still partly 18.2 million.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my concern, we just had an election, a lot of voters talked about this, is the board, as we said, did make some commitments. They're gone. We're a new board. I would like to revote on the athletics because we haven't spent the money yet. And I really want to decide if that's the best way to go forward. And if we don't do the athletics, it sounds like then we have 20 million unspent roughly. And then we can look at options going forward there.
I do just have to point out, and I understand that could be the decision, but the board needs to be fully aware doing so would most likely result in an arbitrage penalty from the federal government. When I've talked to our bond attorney, they have stated that essentially the amount of arbitrage is going to be, the IRS allows you to collect a certain amount of interest on your bonds that you've sold on the money that you have. But anything you've gained in interest above that is what they would penalize from there. So it's not like it's going to be a huge amount. They were not able to get me an exact amount right now because that would take pouring through, probably in our bank statements, those items, things like that. But they said that essentially that is where the arbitrage penalty would come in. Our bond counsel, Jim Crowley, also did advise and say, that's completely fine. If we're willing to accept an arbitrage penalty, there's nothing wrong with that. That is just something that would be there. He said, though, the IRS would expect that we are still continuing to work on spending the money with due diligence. And essentially, if we just decided to say, hey, we're not, this $20 million, this $18 million is sitting there and we don't do anything to move on spending it, then we're going to have a bigger issue with the IRS down the road. So he just advises like, yes, take the arbitrage. You've got plenty of reasons why you would. Like he got that part. He just advised continue to work to spend it.
The arbitrage, oh, go ahead.
The only money that I'm hearing that has been allocated is for the athletics. I'm all for the athletics. My concern is where it's going to be at
Yeah.
this point.
Correct.
This is basically a new board. Don't know what visions are. We haven't discussed any of that. So my concern is if you put it where I always call it Truman, where Taylor High School is, and then you do finally are able to build something at the original site. Now it's a transportation issue, getting kids to and from the athletic field. If there was some way that this board could make a judgment call or investigate for a while or something to where if it was at all possible to build something here on this site, on Kennedy site, then athletics go ahead and get started right here. So my issue isn't not giving the kids athletics, which they're well overdue for.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. We got to decide where it's going.
Yeah, and that was my concern too. I think we're being a little bit premature here. And regarding the arbitrage, some technical bullets called a rebate. And it's essentially one could call it the ill-gotten gains. So it was the interest we weren't supposed to earn.
Yeah.
So we're just paying back money we never should have had anyways. And it would be very helpful if the bond council give us his exact number, but it's money that wasn't really ours to begin with.
Yeah.
So I'm not really concerned about the arbitrage rebate. I do want athletics and the location matters. And yeah, I think hiring a construction manager today is premature. So I'm not going to be supporting that.
Thank you.
I would like to just kind of give some of the thoughts that the leadership on this board currently has been talking about in regards to our options moving forward. Some of us have been talking about a 3-grade high school as an option instead of a 4-grade high school. With our limited funds, maybe we'd be able to figure out an adequate and acceptable 3-grade option. Transparency, I graduated from Southgate Anderson, where we have a 10th, 11th, and 12th grade high school, and I thought it was a fantastic experience just as a student. I could see that having a lot of benefits for our school district as well. And then making Truman or Taylor High into a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade school. And then, using the middle schools and remaining elementaries to try to fit everyone else back into those spots. I feel like if we can make this work, if there are good contractors and good bond managers that we could look to guide us on this kind of work, that would be my pie in the sky dream, is still to build a high school, just make it a 3-grade high school. Our other options are to renovate the current high school. And truth be told, $100 million this year and $100 million next year, it shouldn't be that much of a difference when it comes to buying things that we need in order to refurbish and remodel the high school. And so this board, as of right now, has been in discussion of trying to look into getting more community input, getting more input from the staff, the students, the families, and trying to figure out what would be the best action moving forward. We are aware that there were some issues with perceived transparency during the last board, and we are trying to do our best to make sure that everyone in this room and everyone watching and people who aren't even paying attention right now but may pay attention in a few months have the opportunity to share their expressed interest on what they would like to see moving forward with the remaining 100 million.
Yeah, and I'll say that, I know we have one more session coming up with the public for the strategic plan. And that was some of the hope that we were going to be pulling a lot of that information from the public through that process as well. So yeah, absolutely.
And I was just going to say, to add kind of context for the new board members and everything, just what we explored really over the last year and a half, 2 years for the members that are still here. When inflation started hitting the district really hard, specifically with the bond, the board was starting to get updates about the cost and increases to construction. And so over the time period when the high school, the new building was, the viable option, we were still pursuing it. That's when we started to see meetings happen and occur where we started to see reductions in what was being put into the building. So you saw the reduction of an auditorium. You saw the reduction of a pool being put into the building. You saw a reduction of CTE classes starting to be put into the building. So it was a gradual decrease to the point where costs kept going up and up and up. And it got to a point where it was becoming too expensive to build for the 9th through 12th building. Then that's when the board pivoted and started looking at options. One of the big things that we were trying to figure out is what were the options out there. We looked at, everything from converting this building right here into a high school and building off of it. So using part of an old building, renovating this, and then building an addition off of it. We looked at the Masco property that is off Van Born Road in Taylor. We did tours of that building, looking at that. There were issues with that because you couldn't build a gymnasium in there because The building had these massive cement pillars that kept the building up and you couldn't build around it. And then on top of that, you also had to spend $14 million to purchase the building, which could not be used with bond money. It would have came out of the district's general fund. So we started pursuing those options. Trying to think, what were the other options?
I think you named like quite a bit of it, because did you say the renovating the existing, like
And then
completely
renovating,
gutting
yeah.
Taylor High School and those pieces? Well, I think, you know, as we're having this discussion, the biggest things that are going to help drive to kind of get an idea on what it would cost to do such a 3-grade high school, it's really going to take input from the board to kind of be like, these are our priorities. And, you know, right now we could probably get some really good rough numbers by taking what had previously been designed under the original scope and programming of what the bond called for, and then just reduce the square footage and would give us a very rough number. But in reality, this board may view the programming needs as being different. And so therefore, it really probably needs a complete, thorough relook at what's in there. Like, I know back in spring, we put out a poll to the community and said, like, these are some of the things we're facing, giving us feedback. A couple of the questions that were in the polling that we had put out there, particularly asked the community, and this isn't just like stakeholders in the district, but everybody in the community. This was all eligible voters. And we did get feedback that said that in some ways, the priority was not necessarily that there needed to be a black box theater, not necessarily needed some of those things. So this board will be the ones that has to kind of drive that, and that'll help give us a clear on the cost.
Survey, it did not go to all of the registered voters.
Correct.
It
was
did
a
go to
sample.
400 of them though.
Yes,
Right, so you weren't getting the opinion of the entire community.
correct.
That the entire community voted for the bond to begin with.
Yeah.
And the money that hasn't been allocated, isn't that for the warm, safe, dry, or whatever?
Only of the 30 million.
Correct.
You mean
The
the
100.
100 million?
Or, yeah.
No, I'm talking about what's already been brought down.
So at this point,
It's for the athletics. side.
correct.
It's about 7
Why
million.
haven't we release that to start addressing issues that your building, our buildings and facilities are having currently?
I think
Yeah.
that's what you have right here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the part of my next kind of discussion topic. I did put in front of you guys a chart with some of the major utility projects that have to be there. You are correct. Like, I think there are some needs at all our buildings that could be using up the rest of those funds. But you're gonna find that we have a couple buildings, because of the way that the original bond application was written with the state, that we cannot put bond money into. And when I've met with Jack Gerard, our facilities director, we had a very good discussion on what the needs and prioritizing in that. And some of the needs he sees as being our biggest ones, we cannot use bond money for. Like, the very first one on the list is Hoover desperately needs a roof replacement immediately. Like, there are major concerns with Hoover's roof. But Hoover is not in the original bond application, so no bond money can be used for it.
Immediately went to the high school.
Yeah.
With the 30 some odd year problem of the heating and cooling that needs to be addressed,
Yes,
not band-aided, but
correct,
fixed.
correct.
If we're gonna keep that building, if we're gonna use that building, we need to fix that building.
Absolutely. And that is a building we can use bond money on. So yes, could be there.
Because if we do end up renovating it, we have to be able to renovate what's there to fix the problem without spending money that we're gonna have to go back in and re-spend money.
I agree.
Because if the renovation calls for gutting all of the classrooms and
Put in this new heating system, you're gonna gut. So
Absolutely.
you have
So-
to know that we can do that.
Yeah.
Safely using the money.
So that's perfect timing.
Back to deciding where,
Mhm.
what and if and when
Mhm.
we're gonna follow what the residents
Yeah.
wanted us to do and voted for us to do, or if we can convince the residents this is our only option to do this.
Correct. And I will say this, like, if we're looking at, even if it's building a 10, 11, 12 building, the reality is we would still be using the current Taylor High School.
Yeah.
So either way, there would be, need to be money put into that facility, no matter what we do, whether it's building or renovating. And this is perfect timing because, I've been talking to our representatives from the collaborative, Rich who is here tonight. And we've been talking about what is it going to look like to replace and do what we can to make that system as up to date and perfect as we can for the time being, with the understanding that you still may have to renovate and there might be some movements in the walls. So he's had their engineers out looking, and they're starting to assess like what it would look like to kind of do it in two parts. Replace all the parts that we can now, maybe short of like the ducting work, because that's the thing that's going to get most affected by a redesign. And then find a way in the meantime to at least duct air into certain classrooms that currently there is no ducting to go into there. So-
Since Jack is here, I'm gonna ask him.
Yep.
What do you think needs to be done? A priority in that high school to correct the issue that we're having with the heating and air?
But we have 17 air handlers in that building. In the last 50 years, we've replaced one.
Yep.
So all our air handlers. The air units that we had installed in 2016, those need to be looked at. Those haven't been replaced. But I believe that's something we can get up and running quick. The duct work, I mean, I know Rich has looked at it. The duct work, I think we can do something temporarily. Patrick and I were talking. A lot of the issues are there's not dampers in the classroom. So when we turn on the air handlers, the first classroom is 150 degrees. There's no damper to shut that and close, so the heat continues on out. So if we try to heat up the cafeteria, the first classroom where that duct hits, they're getting on. And that's our problem. There's no way to shut the damper down to shut the heat off in that classroom so it will continue the next.
Doesn't it have something to do with the controls too? Because we used to have Johnson Control and.
That's something that we definitely get to. We have no control over the heat or air. It's either on 100% or off 100%.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
Zero.
Yep.
Been like that forever. So the only way that we see this is if we do change all the air handlers, new air handlers, new pump, everything, boilers, and then run some temporary ductwork with dampers. That's exactly what.
But then I'm hearing the word temporary,
Well,
and then we're putting a Band-Aid on it again.
Yeah.
You understand, you don't want to put all this money in something.
Right.
We're gonna rip out here.
The temporary part would only, like, the stuff that you're talking about replacing would be the new stuff that's gonna stay when the high school is remodeled. The temporary part is the ductwork that you have to get from one place to the other.
Yes.
Okay.
Can
I don't know, Rich, I don't know if you have anything more to add to that, or, because I know it's kind of what we've been talking about.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Rich Browning with Collaborative. So our engineers are UBS. They've been working with us for a little bit here, and we're analyzing the building. And Jack's right. We look at replacing the air handlers, but then down the line from the air handlers, there's VAV boxes, variable air volume boxes, that then are the points of kind of like sub to the main air handler that allow the air to then distribute to the rooms. So if you replace the air handlers, the controls, and those boxes, they can certainly be done in a way that can be reused. It's just really the ducting and the hydronic piping between those items that may need to get reworked in the event of a renovation. The other factor with it is return air. A lot of those walls were built and they don't have any return cut into them. So you're feeding a bunch of air into a space, but you're not relieving that space of any of that air or heat itself. So now we need to look at starting to cut return air into the walls to allow it to get into the plenum and back into the system, which then would also need to be fire rated with dampers, since the building's not sprinkled. And so all those items need to be taken into consideration as we look at the study of how far to go and how not far to go. The hard thing is if you renovate and don't want the layout you have today, that's where you're starting to lose some of the money being spent on those corrections. And I can answer any more questions on that. We're getting you really a proposal and our analysis report between ourselves and our engineers that encompasses all of that. And I can bring them out here as well to help explain.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
And I will say on this as well, because I reached out in the last in the school aid budget for this year, like we were awarded $4 million for the high school. I did talk to the representative in charge of that grant with the state today again, because I hadn't touched base with them in a while. They are clarifying because the way it's written in there says new high school, but his interpretation is similar to mine, saying, well, if you're renovating, you're putting into the current place. He sees that should be okay, but he's double checking on the state's end right now. He also said that even if that comes back and says, well, that's not exactly what we can do, he did throw two other options to me. One is that the legislator who put forward the motion to get that into the school aid budget has the ability to go through a supplemental and get that altered through the legislature, so we can try that route. And then he said the other route is if you deferred that $4 million to the next year, when you ask for the deferment, you can change the purposing. He said that is the scenario he would advise us to use as our last case resort, because you wouldn't get that notification till December of 25. So it ties us up in that you can't access that money as quickly. But if the first two work, like we would be able to access that money pretty immediately, and we could use it to towards the need for the heating and cooling.
If I'm being honest, I would prefer that deferment, because I think that secures the money. I think that relying on going through a supplemental budget change through the state at this point, where you have a divided government, is going to be very tricky and a cumbersome process. I think that if we have the chance to ensure that we can secure that $4 million for our district, no matter what, let's pursue that route rather than banking on the hope that politics goes aside and people come together and they want to say, yeah, let's help.
Well, yeah, ideally I want number one to be where he's like, yeah, it's all good. Like the language is good, but yes.
But it has to go through the House and the Senate.
No,
correct?
not the first one. If he gets the clarification that under the way it's currently written, we are okay to use it on a person.
I'm saying if they come back and say it's not.
Correct. Yeah. You're saying to go for the deferment.
Yeah, because it has to go back if we want to do a change or supplemental change.
Right.
It has to
You
go
are at the
through-
whim of the current makeup in the legislature.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the board?
Well, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what she said earlier regarding the survey. Yeah, 400 people survey, that would probably have a really high margin of error, So yeah, I'm not putting much credibility into a survey of 400 people. I mean, I'm guessing a margin of error. I don't have the math here. You're probably looking at somewhere from plus or minus 8 to 10%, depending on how it was sampled. So now how do we get the methodology for this survey? Because there's a lot of documents I would like to get in general, like how do we go about doing this?
I did share it in the
Easy.
last Friday update. So if you go into the update that I sent well, it's always live in Google, but it comes out in a PDF format on Mondays too. So, but I did attach that to it. Yes.
What was the polling firm? I'm curious.
Glenn Gariff.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the reason it only went
Probably
to
in
a
the
certain
next meeting.
number of people is because of like the funding, like it costs money to do that, and we don't have millions of dollars to spend it.
Well, I'm not criticizing the 400. I just want people to recognize the limitations. You know, it happened in the presidential election. A lot of these state surveys were way, way off because of the small sample size. So if you're going to do a small sample size for the money, fair enough. But just acknowledge that you're going to have a margin of error that could be double digits.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the intention of the survey was the board wanted to test the waters to see if there was an option for passing another bond.
You are correct. That
There-
was
that was the intention. That's how the survey was curated. It wasn't curated towards the option of, I mean, it was in there of renovating. It was like kind of like, if we can't, would you want to renovate?
correct.
Is like you're stuck with that.
Correct.
It wasn't actually testing the community on
And
whether
we did specifically ask them to put in extra questions that regarded specifically auditorium, specifically pool, specifically auxiliary Jim, because those were the pieces that were getting cut back from the original proposal, the original design. So we wanted a little feedback on that. And I will say the polling showed essentially when we asked about whether you would be willing to go out for another bond, it was at a 40% when it started, and then it closed at like 39% by the end of the survey. So as we were advised, like if you don't see any movement at all on that, like there is not the will there is what we got the feedback from the polling company.
I'm just really concerned because of the issues that we had and are currently having with our elementaries that have been worked on. We've got Holland still water running in on is it a daily basis? Not knowing where that's coming from.
Yeah.
That makes me skittish of bringing down any more money or starting building something until we get what we started fixed.
Yeah.
And on that note, and I know right now we're talking about the high school. I have 2 points. So I'm going to talk about the high school and then I'm going to come back to the Holland thing. With the way, because we ran this question by Miller Canfield, who's our bond counsel, about if this board decided that, you know, we don't want the bonds anymore. You know, the voters passed them. We don't want to use them. We are not levying those taxes against residents. We're giving back that 100 million that was not sold. That is not within our right to do. And that was that was advised by legal counsel that once the voters approve bonds, those bonds stay out there forever until the board draws them down or chooses not to. This is where the pause is where the board has the right. The next step is for them to sell the bonds. We have not sold those bonds because we don't feel comfortable at this point selling them, but we are not allowed to so much to say rescind those bonds back.
Yeah, that was exact what we got. And basically the ability to sell that 100 million will remain in perpetuity till a board decides that if they ever wanted to go and sell them. So it doesn't affect people's taxes because they are unsold at this point. In fact, if this board were to decide like that they agreed with the last one and say, hey, we're not going to sell these are just going to sit there in perpetuity for the time being. Most likely we're going to see residents would see their tax rates come down, I believe at the end of this year, because we'll start cycling off the ones that were sold. So
I just wanted that clarity.
Oh yeah,
because if
that's a great
anybody
point.
was questioning about, can we give those bonds back?
Yeah, correct.
No, they're always going to sit out there. So in 20 years, a board could say, oh, let's.
Yeah, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, it's still there.
Was the discussion with Miller Canfield done in open session or closed session?
I don't even know. I want to say that
That
came
was
from an
open.
opinion letter that we had received from them. And I know we've talked about it in open session.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's been brought to the floor, but
I think it would be super helpful to bring Miller Canfield in here for an open session. And then we can ask these questions on the record. And then I think that would stop a lot of this repetitious questions. I've seen other communities do that. The attorney comes in, we waive attorney-client because it's not really pending litigation. And then we just ask these questions. It goes on the public record and everyone knows. And Miller Canfield is some of the best bond counsel in the United States. So yeah, them going on public record would, I think, answer a lot of these questions for people.
Justin, they already did that.
Well, they kind of said they
They
didn't.
did. They did answer.
They did.
yeah, I say, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, what his opinion
In
letter
open
in open session.
session,
Yes.
and, but he was here one day.
John Crowley came to a board
Yeah.
meeting.
There
Jim
was, yes.
Crowley.
Or Jim
Yeah,
Crowley.
yeah.
Came to, and talked openly about it and did specifically state, you cannot give that money back.
Well, no, that was my original question because I didn't know if he had come or not on the open session. That's what I was asking. And somebody said it was written, so I didn't know if he had come or not.
We've had both.
If they
Yeah.
talk of it, they have to write about it.
Right,
They
and so
have
do
to
we have a
give you a
date so
letter.
people can watch that? For that meeting, do we have a date?
All right, we can find
We
it.
can off the
Yeah,
top
off
of
the
my
top
head,
of
no.
it, yeah.
So either or I think would work.
Oh, to the Holland question. So I know is Holland still currently their addition under construction, or really the elementary?
So
Because
there are things that still have not passed our punch list that we walked it the other day that it's just not acceptable at this point. And that's where we were at. So it is not completely wrapped up, to say the least.
so the addition part is still closed off to students. There's no students in there.
I believe there have been parts that they have used, but not all of it, because there are certain areas that we don't feel are open for that yet.
Do we have they issued the certificate of occupancy for
I
that?
would have to double check. Yeah.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have that? Huh?
You don't have, Jack, you don't have a copy?
Oh, no,
Who holds those?
I believe would be held here at the finance office, but I will
The
double
finance
check.
office? Okay.
That would be typically where those kind of things would come to.
So we still currently have issues with the brand new addition.
Correct. We just walked it within, like I say, the last 5 days, and there are still concerns that we have. Yes.
Have they,
Excuse me, have a certificate of occupancy if you can't use the whole thing.
I don't know. It's that you can't. It's things that we just feel are not correct enough on our end to say we want to go there. Like there's some issues with door handles in one of the classrooms, and we'd rather not use that if we're experiencing issues with that. There are certain areas where like the can lighting is not to what we would expect. So we've just decided that classroom has not been in use as of yet. So,
have they provided any timeline?
oh, do you know that one, Gary, offhand? Because I know you've been in contact with them since our punch list walk.
Yeah, we walked with them last Monday, I believe. And there was a few issues such as there's water coming in. There was a water storm line that was broken. That's funneling water back upstream essentially is what trying to figure it out. They actually jetted the lines on Monday to try to figure out where that water is coming from. I know the collaborative's been out there looking at the roof. There were some can lights that didn't have the rings around them. We walked in a few weeks ago. There was base molding that was missing. So it's just things that we didn't find acceptable. We do have occupancy, so students could occupy that space, but it was intended the district not to move a bunch of furniture and stuff into those classrooms. If we had to do some bigger fix to the water problem, to have to move it all back out. As of yesterday, all the furniture that was stored outside in those storage containers has been moved back in. There has been a few classes in there when we've walked through, but we're still working through it. The big one is just a water issue. They tied into existing storm line. They think that there's a bunch of water that's built up in the parking lot. I think it's just the line is broken, it's funneling back up. So they jetted it on Monday. They're hoping that mitigates the issue. I know the collaborative is going to be out there to try to further investigate where that's coming from, but still an ongoing process.
Hey, Jack, do you know if we've seen any difference since they jetted on Monday, or it's still the same? Okay. Yeah.
Are we coordinating all of this with our utility department, with Jack and everything?
The
Have
jetting
we-
of the lines.
No, like just the whole project overall.
Yeah, we've walked it with.
Okay. And you've went through the punch list and everything with them.
We just walked, yeah, I guess we didn't go through ourselves with the punch list, but the punch list that they had, we did go through and make sure that area is getting done.
Okay.
You have your own punch list?
We do, but most of it's that's what's on there.
Yeah.
Walk out of iron, that's what we found.
I definitely agree that the districts and the district end, we should have a punch list as well, and as you're walking through. Addressing those.
And the main reason I elaborated on this situation is because I know that we have items that we want to spend that remaining $7.2 million on. But if there's continued issues with buildings that we've already had work done on, spending all that 7.2 then means that we're going to have to pay for any other expenditures out of general fund. Correct?
Not necessarily. That's the stuff we're going to have to look into. And I started talking with John Kava, our legal advisor from Collins and Blaha, because some of this is like the water coming up and things like that. Like that's concerning that you know, this is ongoing. And if we got to go in and start ripping out and redoing the flooring that was just done, that shouldn't be coming from our cost. And
Neither should the destruction and all the other stuff that's happened either.
So, and mainly where I stand in that question was, for example, at Holland, they have windows, but they only have emergency exit windows on their building.
Mhm.
They currently don't have any windows in their classrooms in any space that are for airflow. They only have emergency exit windows. And so if we have to go and purchase additional window pans that can open, is that included in what we already expensed, or is that an additional expense this district will have to spend?
I will have to look in and see where that's at.
Why was that?
The whole building got brand new windows and none of the windows was there installed ones that open. They only have emergency exit. No, that's how it was designed. It was only emergency exit windows.
That can be a trend in new construction now, yeah, to kind of seal off the building. Some engineers simply design it that way. I think the
But we
board
can look
probably
into
didn't
that.
look at that closely.
But I'm just saying, because that could eat into some of that cost. So
Yeah,
that
I
just,
hear what you mean. Yeah, correct. So, yeah, we'll absolutely look into that. That makes sense to me.
Anyone else?
so is there currently an idea, like, because I know right now we have, from the very beginning, we have $18.2 million unallocated of that 30 million. So I know there was the discussion of athletics. What were the other discussion items that the bond can be for? Because I know you stated that when we approved the bond, the voters, the school district has to submit what they call a PQ app
Yep.
to the state treasury. And this PQ app lists every single project site that the bond will go towards, correct?
Correct.
Correct me if I'm misspeaking too. In that PQ app, West Middle School, Hoover Middle School, this building, the Board of Education, the Taylor Career Center, the existing one, the utility department, transportation,
ERC.
PRC. Are there other buildings?
No, I think those are the
Okay.
ones you're saying, the ones that are not in.
They
the
are
PQ
not.
application. That
They
is
are
correct.
not listed as sites where we can use bond money for.
Correct, yeah.
So do we have an idea of what we want to use the bond money that's left for?
So, yeah, I think that there are plenty of places like the list I gave you here. These are like what Jack presented to me, and then we discussed as like, these are fairly urgent items. There are lots of other needs we have, like there are definitely roofs, parking lots, windows, boilers all over this district that need to be replaced. In addition to what's on here, this was just like these are things that we know have to get done really quick. So yeah, there's plenty of other things we can find. Like our buildings are aging, they need the support. There's definitely, you know, that $7 million can go to good use for all those kind of things right now. Like I know for a fact, parking lots especially are not great throughout the district. So I think there's absolutely the need.
Can we get some verification as to whether the bond money can be used for these?
Yeah.
And as we
For
can move
the
forward
fencing,
and what-
yes.
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
and that would avoid the arbitrage payments coming up, correct? If we put something out.
Yeah, so you know, I had reached out to Gary recently and said, like, you know, if there was a talk of putting athletics on hold, and we were willing to either take the arbitrage payment, but one of the other thoughts was maybe we can proceed with some of those other projects to meet that arbitrage threshold and go from there. They'd have to be projects that don't have a lot of lead time because we'd have to commit the money fairly quick. We'd have to commit it before that April deadline. So typically your mechanical, like your boilers and things like that, are not going to be able to be done in time to meet that deadline. But roofs, parking lots, windows, those are things that could meet that deadline and might offset us from having that arbitrage payment as well.
But
Like that's a possibility.
Made the statement that it didn't have to be done or work done.
It has to be committed.
It
Correct.
had to be earmarked.
Correct, yes. It's a little more that you have to have the contract in place. And that's the part where the boilers and the mechanical becomes the holdup because of the timing of when that would go in place. But the other pieces you could get going.
This might be a question for Gary. When we passed the bond and that PQ application that was submitted to the Treasury that listed the projects happening on site, how much of that 130 million was allocated towards the new high school?
Do not have that information off the top of my head. I can get you that answer though.
Okay. Do we know when we went through the process of looking at renovating the existing Taylor High School, what was that cost to fully renovate and gut it?
I
So-
don't have that information.
I would say the understanding of the design that we had in place, and that included, like I say, a completely gutting what the walls would be and adding, drastically changing that building. We were going to go through every bit of what the dollars that we had in the bond, and we were going to be 4 million short. Hence why they asked from the state of Michigan in their budget to provide us the 4 billion.
I thought that was if we weren't using the full 100 towards that. I thought if the full 100 million goes towards renovating, it would cover the full cost.
Correct. I believe the budget had X amount of dollars for the high school renovations
Yes.
and then a certain amount.
Oh, yeah,
for
thank
every
you.
building,
You're right.
correct.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot that part. Yeah.
Products in there.
Yeah.
But we don't have those numbers.
Not in front of me right now.
Okay. Can this board get that of what was approved in the bond for the original building?
Yes.
And then what was estimated as the renovation cost for Truman
Yep, well, certainly.
or Taylor House? Sorry.
I do want to, because I know I gave you guys this list of these kind of urgent utility projects. So at the regularly scheduled meeting that we're going to have following this committee of the whole, we are bringing forward the new budget amendment that Dr. Hill is going to bring forward. These things are not currently in that budget amendment, just so you know. So they would be things that would be spending down on our fund balance. We have a very healthy fund balance right now. It's going to be roughly at, I want to say 39 million that we have in the fund balance. And so anything that we're projecting on here potentially would be coming off of that 39 million. The stuff in green on this sheet that I had given you, these are the projects that I think are very realistic that we should proceed with this year, even though that it would come to roughly $1 million that would come out of our fund balance. You'll see the first one, the biggest one that Jack has really identified is Hoover's roof needing to be replaced. The second would be West, their boilers, they're on their last legs. They've desperately needed to be changed for quite some time. And then, like I said, the priorities go from there. So then the next would be Randall's boiler. In the green, like I said, I'll skip down the THS heat. We need to work out exactly how the payments and all that, but I think that's something we urgently need to proceed on. And then 7 through 12 on the list are playground fencing. And this was a concern we definitely heard from the community earlier this year regarding when we have students who, special needs students who have tried to elope in that. And this is just another one of those safety concerns that we feel we need to address and have out there. So these are things we could do now. In purple is something that, because I didn't want to overburden what our funds are for this year, we put on for next year, possibly doing the west roof replacement, because that's another building that's going to need that coming up and is not in the bond money. And in yellow on your sheet is, I put Hoover's because this is kind of some of it would be this year for their heat and some of it would be for next year. We went through this past year and we've added new controllers to several classrooms within Hoover, and you can tell the difference. Like, it has made a marked difference on the climate controls for those rooms. We'd like to go through and now do that process immediately for the entire building. That wouldn't be a very expensive process, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, we talked about roughly 35,000 to 40,000 to do that part. But down the road, it probably needs a complete gutting like the Taylor High facilities as well.
So are you,
Yep.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to say, the Hoover Road, the west boilers and all the fencing has already been put out. We're actually going to bring it next board meeting to the board, but those we've already put those out and paid and we've already got them.
so for Hoover's heat, because it just says on our little sheet, it just says Hoover heat bond cannot be used, needs to be bid out. You said you already went to bid or no?
Just, I mean, we did part of Hoover last fall.
So are you, is this line item asking us to approve, like, are we searching for that full gut or are we looking at just the
Well,
controller?
I'll say this, when I put it together, we hadn't sat and had that conversation that we could split it in two. So since I put this together and put that needs to be bid out, we now realize that some of it can proceed now and some of it can't. So it was, we didn't have the full information at that.
So the immediate thing that you're saying for the Hoover heat is just the controllers.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's what you're saying is like 35, 40,000.
Yeah, it's about $3,000 last year. We had so $5,000.
Yep.
So if we approve this today, just to clarify, the specifics come back. So we're allocating the money, but then we're going to still vote on, maybe we don't like the type of fencing, for example. That still comes back to us, correct?
We're not going to be voting on.
Yeah,
any
but
of
we're
today.
not.
This
taking
is
these
just,
today.
you're letting us know these are things that need to be worked on.
Correct.
Okay,
you
so
know,
this is not the upcoming budget amendment that we
no,
talked about.
correct.
Okay.
I'm essentially, you know I've heard from
Okay.
several board members that, you know, they would like to get the information, see it, have some time to think on it. So that's why I thought it was a great idea to talk about this in committee of the whole today. And then we can bring what we have out there for bid in 2 weeks and
Good.
make
Okay,
that kind
good.
of decision.
But when you talk about the fund balance being 39 million,
Mhm.
there's so much of it that is bond money that can't be touched.
Not on that. That's just straight general fund. That does not include the bond money. Correct.
So on that note of the budget, I know you, like, I'm looking at the district's 5-year projected budget right now.
Mhm.
And it's showing that after this amended budget that we approved tonight,
Yeah.
we'll end the year with $39 million in our fund balance.
Correct. Essentially, what we're bringing forward tonight is having us break even for this year. Our original budget that we passed in June was that we were going to be eating into our fund balance by, I think, roughly between $4 and $5 million. But because conditions have changed since the budget was passed in June, we're now at a situation where we'll break even.
So, and I get that, but then I'm looking at the years ahead and I know we can't base,
Yeah.
you know, each year is a different situation when the state legislature releases their state aid. We don't know what's happening with the federal government, if federal funding gets affected. But it's showing right now that within 2 years, yeah, we're positive, we're not hitting a deficit, but then it says in 2 years, we do dip back down in that deficit.
Yeah.
Do you know what that causes?
Well, so the
Operating deficit, not
Yeah.
an actual
Not going in the
deficit.
hole. Yes, exactly. So a lot of that is that we have very good ways to predict the next couple of years because we currently have settled contracts with all our bargaining units. We have a pretty good estimate on where we're going to be with students that we have. We know that we have secured, or Lansing has secured, the adjustments and MIPSers that's getting us more money in the district on an annual basis. So we have a better crystal ball to get us through the next couple of years. I think where you start to see that dip in a few years out is where you're starting to
It's in
factor
2
in the
years.
unknowns. Yeah.
It's in
Yeah,
2
you're going to
years.
see you're getting into some of those unknown quantities.
Mhm.
And to me, that's where I've always said over the last year and a half, if we're committed to making good business decisions and making good choices when we're looking at when we hire, when we decide not to replace positions, when we do those things, that's what's going to help us keep from getting to where that structural deficit begins again. So I think it's just committing ourselves to just making the right choices as we go along.
I'm only pointing that out because, yes, it is unknown.
Yeah.
And yes, right now we are projecting to be in an operating deficit.
Yeah.
But that's a projection.
Yeah.
But when we incorporate this into spending down our fund balance.
Yeah, it's less you're drawing from in 2 years from now.
Well, I was gonna say we have to just be cautious of those projections and what becomes reality versus what we're spending down.
Yep, I agree. And that's why I think as we talk through the strategic planning process, there's a lot we still need to talk about with how we're best utilizing our facilities and using those things. So I think more will come out of when we get there, but yeah.
And I think we'll know a lot more in probably 6 months with the federal, because the federal can cut both ways. Do they cut funding or do they cut requirements? If they cut requirements, that saves money. So there's so much unknown in the federal.
Yeah.
We
And-
really don't know.
And not even just at the federal, like there's a lot of politics to play out at the state level yet too, because just today, Governor Whitmer released her recommendations of how to spend the school aid budget. In her recommendations today, it was a 4.1% increase to the per pupil foundation, which would bring the per pupil to $10,000 even. I mean, that would be huge, 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 and would help us to not have that worry about that structural deficit in a couple of years. However, there's a lot of politics to play out between now and a finalized budget from the state of Michigan. But it's lots of things that are going to come forward.
I guess when it comes to back to the high school and the bond, I think we do owe it to the new board members. And I'll just say this, to allow them to be able to navigate and try to express what they want to see. I think coming in as a new board member, I think it would be bad of me to say, well, you don't know. So, listen to me. I think I owe them the respect because they're coming in with fresh ideas, fresh minds, fresh faces, and they might have a perspective or an idea that's different. And so I really want to lean in on the new board members that are here and some that were appointed to really take the time to navigate this and really take the time to seek out solutions and seek out what you think is best for the school district. And I think, that is owed to you because you were elected. You were elected to fill this seat and you're elected to represent. And if you feel that that is what you need to do to represent, then absolutely it's respected on my part. So.
Also,
Thank you.
I wanted to have the new board members been offered all the information that we've already worked through the last 2 years to get to where we were at about renovating? Like, have any of them been offered any of the paperwork?
There's
any
certain
copies,
things yet, but
anything?
probably not everything that we went through at this point. So
If you do that
Nothing.
information, they would know where, like, the rest of us are at.
Yeah.
So I think that's important that they get.
oh, gladly, yes.
Yeah, I don't know how far were you prepared to take a vote on how to allocate that money or what were you doing it as a board at that point? Because
We
I
also
just
have
got-
1 minute left before the other meeting started.
Oh,
no, you're good. Same, we
We
have 1
were
minute left.
looking towards that, but we knew that a lot of people were going to be returning, so we kind of put a halt
okay.
to things because we knew that it was gonna be a whole new board. But there's a lot of information that I think that you guys all need.
Yeah.
Before you.
Yeah, I think the easiest,
Like, we should do this, or we should do that, like,
Well,
it needs to be
yeah.
out there so they can see what.
Yeah.
Has already gone into.
no, I can
Yeah.
gladly share. In my next Friday update, I'll gladly share a link to, I believe I did a superintendent's report in September when I was at the superintendent's conference and I wasn't here, and I did a video one that I think was one of the most concise of everything that's taken place up to this point. I can gladly get that out as a starting point, and then we can add more information from there.
I'm going to say that as a board member, it needs to be a little bit more detailed. And I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
trying
no,
to be
it's just a
disrespectful, but
start.
I'm saying we have schematics on what it would look like if Masco, what the schematics of what this
Yeah, yeah,
building,
yeah.
the schematics of the
Yeah.
renovation, the budgets of those, the presentations that were given by Plant Moran, by the collaborative. We have those
Yeah.
all.
absolutely.
That's what should be provided to these new board members so that they can review that and have the detail and facts. So that if they have questions, when you're looking at it with new eyes, we were third option in and defeated and beaten and just like stressed.
Yeah.
And so you all
We
are
exhausted
coming in.
every possible
Yeah.
option for that board, like we did.
Yeah.
before. So you guys need to see that, see the numbers, so you know we're not coming into this like, oh, let's just throw it out, because it's that easy, because it's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Understood.
No, as a
And
new
that's-
board member, I agree. We'd love to see that.
Yep.
And it'd be nice if we had some orientation too. Maybe once a month have different topics where the attorney can come in and go over things like Open Meetings Act, things like that. I mean, orientation would be nice. It would
Well,
be
I
really
would just
nice.
like to say that, that in getting the committees back together, my vision is that it's a way for our board members to sit down with directors, find out exactly whatever information you think needs to have, and then we come back together and share that information with everybody on the board. And at any rate, I think Shauna will send out a Google form, ask you to sign up for a committee or two. Once those are filled, we'll push them out to the appropriate director and start to schedule meetings. I think she was also going to ask when's a good time to meet, that type of thing. Right? Am I wrong, Tracy? Okay.
Anything else?
Probably should adjourn here.
Oh, okay, well, go ahead. I think we're almost just about done.
Comment.
Any more discussion regarding what we've been talking about, the bond, the money, or anything else?
I would just like to see more of these scheduled and have it be an open forum like this. I think that is, like you said, more transparent to the community and a way for this new board to really be open and bring the community along in this process.
Exactly, and that's the goal. We'll see.
Is this being televised? I take it?
Yeah, we're being.
It is being, okay, good, good. So people can watch at home. Yeah. Let's make sure.
Okay, thank you. Now I guess we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone wishing to address the board? Mrs. Katz? Bear with me a second. Thank you to all, for all that you do, that you can be with us tonight. We understand the importance of continuing to keep you informed and providing an opportunity for you to be heard. Public comment will begin with those in person and then move on to our online audience. For those in person, please step to the microphone, state your name, address for the record. After the in-person comment, our online audience will need to find and raise the hand symbol for a moderator to recognize and unmute. Please take into consideration common courtesy, refrain from any personal attacks, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We will provide an assistant and assist with timekeeping. So each guest will be able to monitor their own time and know when to conclude. So all who wish to speak will have the equal opportunity to do so. As a reminder, if there are any questions at this meeting or by some other avenue, Superintendent Wager or his designee will work on getting those answers in a timely manner. Okay, don't need that.
Caroline
Welcome.
Patz, 6860 Jackson. Speaking of Holland and things not done over there, when I was at Myers, there was just little things here and there. And I'm sure when Jack goes over there, he'll have his check off list, but like the door in the library, all you had to do is just pull the door. It would not lock or shut and could just push it. And then of course, I know the booths are not put in there yet, but they do have the heat and that's a good thing. But there are some little things everywhere in those 3 buildings that were renovated that need to be taken care of. I'm one of those people who did not get that call, and for the survey and I know it was mainly to say, would you go for another bond? You're never going to get another bond in Taylor. I'm telling you
That's
that
pretty
right now.
much what the data says.
69 years, I've been in Taylor, you'll never get another one. And I don't know really about voting on bonds, on how this works. You said the 100 million is set off the side forever. Is there anything that can be done that the voters can come back and vote on something like that to say, okay, we don't want that 100 now? I don't know if there is, or is there something?
Jim Crowley, our bond attorney from Miller Canfield, he did say to us that even voters cannot go back and rescind, that there is case law that went all the way up to Michigan Supreme Court that says that, and I forget, he said the case I think was in the 1970s, and there was a community that did want to go back and revote, and the Supreme Court said, no, once the authority is given, it is given into perpetuity and exists there.
So if you ever have another bond that goes on the ballot, that needs to let You
I
need to let the
think you'd
residents
have-
know that.
Correct, and you'd have to spend up what's there first, I think, before you get, the state would probably even.
But I mean, you
give the
let,
green
let the
light.
voters know, guess
Yes.
what? If we don't use this,
Oh, yeah,
sorry, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
You need to let them know that.
yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Okay, I would entertain a motion to discharge. Motion by Schufeld, second, anyone?
Take like 5 minutes in between.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, did I get support on that motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Here either. Paper cards, roll
Sorry.
call, Schufeld. Wright,
Yes.
Block,
Yes.
Fields,
Yes.
Moore is a yes, Modarski,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
that passes 7-0. We are adjournment 6:06. We're gonna take a 5-minute or so recess